It's March 16th, 2015, and in the last video clip I was talking about government organized rape against me and some of the programming that they did with a couple of different kinds of groups in facilitating that. And the next thing that I'm going to talk about is then how they put their plan into action, because they did first develop and organize their plan. And then they carried it out and committed their crimes against me. You know, it's not the only crime that was ever committed against me, but this was one that was obviously premeditated and coordinated with a lot of thought. So that is going to be the next thing that I talk about. However, right now at this time, I'm actually going to just make a really short video clip and talk a little bit about a hearing that I'm going to today. Because in the past, this court is denying that they've ever seen me before. But I've had 2 cases at this court already over the same thing, which is over a baby girl that I gave birth to. And when I was a teen, or preteen, actually just very young teen, they had trafficked me over to this location in the first place, tried to hide what happened, and I went through a sort of faux court process, which looked to me to be completely authentic, looked like it was a real court, but there was a real baby, it was my baby, but they have removed all of the records and are claiming that it's never happened, and the attorneys and judge actually say that they never met me before, they never had me in their courtroom, and etc. And I put a clip, well anyway, so that's not true. What's true is that they committed a lot of crimes, and then I think part of the reason, I mean, maybe they always had this plan to destroy or remove evidence that I'd had a case in their court, or possibly they removed it after they found out that I knew what they had done was illegal, because they had coerced me not to take it to higher courts at the time, threatening me and telling me that they would, if I did try like to appeal, that they would start pressing charges against me for being Anna the Russian spy. And this is in reference to Anna Chapman, the one that they actually deported, who was the Russian spy, in 2011. And all the way back into the the late 1980s, I was being accused of being Anna the Russian spy. And I guess I never had a last name to go with it, because it was just being spread about that Anna was the person. I guess a little bit like how Edward Howard, the CIA officer who was accused of doing something wrong and went to Russia, well, he said that what was actually going on, you know, I don't know if it's true or not, but he said that the name that someone was given as the spy was Robert, not an Edward Howard or whatever. So that's what he said, or that's what some person said. So sometimes, I guess, in intelligence circles or wherever they get their information, you don't always get a last name. You just maybe get a first name. So anyway, it was getting circulated around in FBI files and police files and who knows what else, that I was that because I used the name Anna sometimes as like an alternate name, and because I had actually visited Russia when I was really young, which I think people would deny because I think they just don't want any evidence to show that that's true. They were accusing me of being Anna the Russian spy, and when I said, you can't threaten me and tell me that I can't file this in a higher court because I want my baby back, I want my daughter. And they said, oh yes, we can, and we can show a jury video that we've taken, and you think a jury's going to believe your word against ours? We're the professionals and the officials, and we're the government. And do you really think that any jury is going to believe the accused criminal? And I said, especially with this videotape coverage that we have. And I can describe what the videotape coverage was later, but it was just basically more, it was staged, basically, and made to frame me and have it appear I was doing one thing when it was about something else. But given the fact that they didn't have their Anna the spy yet, and they were accusing me of that, or that they could, even though they knew it wasn't true, and they even said this, and the fact that I knew that they had videotaped a certain kind of activity that looked like espionage, I knew that the United States government would try to use it against me if I dared take my case further. So this happened with a couple of cases. I was getting threatened. And at this point in the court process, too, what they were doing is they were dragging me, electrocuting me, and forcing me into, they're basically obstructing my freedom of movement, trying to get me to shut up, trying to block me from being able to move freely and get assistance from like a lawyer, or to file documents, to get work, that kind of thing. And when I filed for a motion for change of attorney, it was actually a motion for continuance for change of attorney. Instead of, I asked for hearing requested. The courthouse refused to file my document, and they've done this again because I filed another motion for continuance. But actually, I tried to file it, and they refused to file it. And so they refused to file it, and then in the past, what happened is they decided to call it a judicial review, as if I'd never made any request at all on my own. And so we went to this judicial review hearing. They didn't have any audio tape running. They weren't recording anything. And basically, they just decided to say that I was nuts, I didn't know what I was talking about, and I needed to be evaluated right on the spot because I had suddenly gone downhill very fast. And so therefore, it was imperative that, I be evaluated for my mental stability. So they used this hearing to take me from point A to point B, and point A was the courtroom, and the courthouse room, which wasn't exactly a hearing room as I recall, it was more of a conference room, to point B, which was a Coos County mental health facility for quote-unquote assessment. And it was an involuntary assessment. So I am now, that was in the past what happened a couple of times, and that was just one of several times that they had me detained for quote-unquote mental reasons, and I didn't have any way to prove that what they were saying was untrue, because the entire thing wasn't even being recorded. So how coherent I wasn't noted at all. I mean, you couldn't, there's no evidence for it. And so to protect myself at this time, because this is, again, I'm going to a hearing for a request for continuance for change of attorney. And what it is, it's a motion for continuance. The reason is for change of attorney. But I have requested a continuance, which is appropriately filed and docketed up as a motion. And I was not allowed to file that. So I'm going to that same kind of process. They're calling it a judicial review, and I don't want to end up in a nut house. So, again, like they've done in the past. And so I am just making this video. It is probably about 8:30 or so in the morning, and I am making this video right now so that there's a little bit of protection to show that I'm not acting delusional, psychotic, or like I would harm myself or another person or do anything bizarre. And because I need to stay out of those places and be able to work on things that I have to work on right now that are necessary. So anyway, when I make the next video clip, it will continue with how they carried out their action against me of rape, this one rape that I was talking about. However, I have already described it, and it was described in the rapes committed by Robin Bechtold. And so I did touch on that. I'll just kind of go over it again a little bit as to how the programming specifically was used to implement the rape. But most of what happened, I've already talked about. One of the things that I also think happened is that I was starting to detail some of this activity by the government when I was a young teen, including some of their programming against me. And I think that the reason they were rushing me off to be drugged and electrocuted and detained and then telling me to shut up and that kind of thing and threatening me is I think because at that time they had only completed their programming portion of things. They hadn't carried out their rape yet. I think that they didn't want me talking about things that they were doing to me that they had hoped to fulfill and achieve down the road in the future when they actually committed their rapes later, when I was an adult. So I believe that they were not just trying to screw up my case and my cases at the time when I was younger, and they were not just kidnapping my baby girls under color of law. They were also trying to keep a lid on their government activities so that I wasn't able to get that information out to someone who may have been able to step in the way and stop them from carrying out what they were ultimately seeking to carry out, which was additional consecutive rapes of me by the United States government, sponsored, paid for, and encouraged by the government. And also in the one thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about some of the people who were present at the Adams house and the Peters house and then the Moses Lake and the different places where they were doing this programming. And this is just one set of programming. This is not including all the different things they did to me, because they did a ton of things constantly. If they at one time said that I was a genius, and I was told my IQ was 180, which is supposedly what Benjamin Netanyahu's was. And that's how I remembered it, is because they told me that's what his was, so I remembered mine by remembering his. But if that was the case, they really dumbed me down because I'm pretty average right now, and how I was before, I could have accomplished a lot, and I wasn't able to accomplish hardly any of the things that I could have done because I was constantly getting detained and trafficked and moved around and forced to do this programming, had an electrocution head raised on my head, and maybe part of the reason they were getting away with some of it is they were just saying, oh, look, she's fine, she sounds fine, you think we really did any damage. Well, they did do damage, and they did serious damage to me. But some of those other individuals who were involved, I haven't really mentioned everyone, but I did say that there were a couple of cops and that kind of thing. Well, at the Adams house, at one point, I believe it was Agent Fowler was there, and Anderson. And Anderson, the officer Anderson, worked with Brian Gross. And Brian Gross was working with Officer Anderson with the Portland PD even recently, and had been like partners with him for quite a while. Well, they knew each other a long time ago. And when I, much later as an adult, started getting raped again by these government kids, I tried to make a report, and it got sent straight to Brian Gross. And he had the privilege of making sure my report went nowhere. So no matter what I've done with this country and this government, they've just tried to shut me up so that they can continue their harm against me and my kids. And I'm not going to shut up.